Hi, I'm Bruce Moody, and I'm with Military Community and Family Policy. We're a Department of Defense agency, and we help service members and their families navigate military life. We're the ones who bring you Military One Source. So, on behalf of all of us, happy National Veterans and Military Families Month. All this month, all of November, the Department of Defense and Military One Source, we have free offers and virtual events online. And I encourage you to go to Military One Source and check them out and learn more about that. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion. There's going to be a discussion with some military spouses. And we're going to talk about military families, share some ideas, some advice, some life hacks. And I think this will be really very helpful to you, whether you're brand new to the military or whether you've been at it for a while. Wherever you are in your journey, I think you're going to find some great advice. So let's introduce them straight away. We have Lizann Lightfoot, we have Kristi Stollenberg, and we have Katelyn Nixon. And it is great to have you with us. And what I hope to do is get out of the way and let the three of you step and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and your families. Let's start with Lizann.
Hi, I'm Lizann Lightfoot. Thank you so much for having us on today. It's great to be working with Military One Source and sharing our experience. I'm a Marine Corps wife, have been for 13 years. My husband and I have 5 kids, and we have just finished our 6th PCS. So we currently live in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I've been writing for the blog Brigade for a few years now.
Great. Kristi.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristi Stolzenberg. I am a 12-year Marine Corps spouse. I've got 2 kids with my husband and a brand new puppy. And as of last night, 2 new kittens. So, slowly becoming outnumbered here by animals. We are, feeling settled back in the States after a stint OCONUS, so it's good to be home, and I'm happy to be here today.
Happy to have you with us. Katelyn Nixon, welcome aboard.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to meet you guys and talk about military life. So I am a military spouse of 8 years. My husband is in the Army. We have 2 kids, a 9-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. We are currently stationed in College Station, Texas right now, and we did a PCS earlier this year too. So I'm excited to be here with the Blog Brigade, and thanks for having us.
We're excited to have you with us today. And so let's just start with a really general question. What does a typical day, and I'd toss this out to the group, but what does a typical day look like for you, and how do you navigate it?
I think we can
start coffee. We need lots of coffee. I do anyway. And then I don't know that you sit down the whole day. It's up and running, and to a point it's scripted. We have routines, getting the kids ready for school, a full day of work, which right now with COVID is at home. Then we're inching back into the normal activities, soccer, gymnastics, ballet. Husband and I can usually do a high five across the threshold, and then if we can circle around the table for dinner, that's a win. Of course, military life likes to throw a wrench, so we're always ready.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just say that there's really not a typical day. I feel like, every place we go, we kind of get set in our new routines, and, our spouses are doing a certain job, and then a couple years later we move again, and then our routine shifts and their job changes. And so we're just always kind of changing things up, and I like that. But it's just, this life brings a lot of adventure, and not every day is the same.
Kristi?
For sure. I'd say lots of adventure and lots of flexibility. Right now, at this stage in life, most of my kids are in school. Our youngest is a baby, still at home with me. And for about 4 years now, I have been working from home as a writer. So there's lots of juggling and lots of balancing. I balance my freelance writing with an editorial job that I also do. So it's always something new and fresh every day.
How about holidays? Are you able to manage any holidays? Hobbies? Are you able to manage any hobbies in the middle of all of that?
Sure, I do like baking when I can. The kids like to bake with me. Obviously, I like reading and writing, and working out, taking a bike ride, just getting outside. So depending where we've been stationed, there's been different outdoor opportunities.
If I can escape for a run, I do that. Also we have a lovely sunroom. I can sit in there and catch some heat in the winter and read a good book. I'm a happy girl.
Yeah, I love to read. So I read a lot, and I try to steal away time for myself throughout the day because it's hard, as a military spouse. And so I try to just do a couple hobbies. Like I like to paint and like to read, but try to find time in the day to steal away a little bit of time for myself.
All right. Well, let's talk about something that's really central to military life, and that would be deployments. So, do they get easier? Are they different over time? Are they all the same? What experiences? What advice do you have regarding deployments?
Sure. So I'm happy to talk on that topic. My husband is a Marine, and because of that, we've had the great honor of going through 7 deployments together from, the early years when I was the girlfriend, and then the fiance and the spouse and mom of little ones and bigger ones. And in some ways, yeah, they do get easier in the sense that you learn your routines, you learn what works for you, and you learn what to expect. But for sure, on the emotional level, it's never easy. It's always going to be hard to say goodbye. It's always hard running a household as the only adult. It's always hard taking on all of the burdens and responsibilities of 2 people onto your own shoulders. So I don't want a spouse ever to think that they're doing something wrong if their second or third or fourth deployment seems equally as challenging, if not more so, than an earlier one. So I would say there are ways that you can prepare. There are things that you can do ahead of time to strengthen yourself and make deployment go a little more smoothly. Definitely, there's the paperwork. We hear how important it is to get that power of attorney and get the service members' paperwork in order. But I think on a personal level, it's also important to kind of get your own house in order. Have contact information for the friends that are going to be your lifeline when those inevitable deployment emergencies come up. Plan ahead how you would handle certain inconvenient emergency situations. Who would you call? What would happen with your kids? What would be your first step in a certain situation? So you can definitely start building your support system and making those connections before the deployment even begins. And then there's a lot that you can do to support yourself and your mental health throughout the deployment. I think it's very important to have rewards and have goals for yourself in place as you go through deployment. And that's going to look different for everyone, depending on your season. Sometimes just keeping babies alive is all that you can do. And then other times there's moments when people can sign up for marathons and, start a class or a job or something really life-changing. So I do always encourage people to look at deployment as an opportunity to set those goals, to take advantage of that situation, and to kind of challenge yourself and try new things. You don't want to get exhausted and stress yourself out and push yourself too far, but you do want to make the most of the situation.
I'm sure you both have a ton of experience and advice. Want to share?
I would just want to second exactly what Lizann was saying. I look at deployments as an opportunity to grow personally. I try to set goals for myself and have things to look forward to and to focus on. And not every day is easy. And, there's not this major goal that you have to do by the end of deployment, but just something to set for yourself that you can look forward to, and you can try to enjoy the opportunity you have by yourself and to personally grow. I think that's always really important.
I would just throw in probably a completely different perspective. While we were living in Japan, my husband was forward deployed, so we didn't have a traditional deployment, but what we did have was a really unstable, unpredictable schedule. He would be home for 3 days, gone for 4, and it was never the same week to week. So it was hard for me as a planner to get settled in that. I was not able to really ever in 3 years establish a routine that was consistent. So in that respect, I actually appreciate the traditional, 6-month deployment a little bit more. You can make plans around it, and as the parent at home that you are on 24/7 for 6 months. But it was challenging, I will say, to have that flexible schedule constantly for 3 years.
Yeah, that sounds really frustrating. I would agree with Kristi that there are those times, especially in a traditional deployment, you've got that pre-deployment workup stage. And a lot of people going through that for the first time are unprepared for that stress of the constant coming and going and changing and no routines and no stability. And if that's your only experience leading up to a deployment, it might feel like, well, if I can't even handle this 3 weeks apart, how am I possibly going to handle, 3 months or 6 months? And in some ways, what you were saying is that it's harder. It's harder when they're in that state of flux. And once you get into a stable routine, deployment does sort of level out. The beginning is really hard, but it's not going to be like that the entire time.
Exactly.
I have a sort of a different phase in this is sort of the homecoming. We look and we see these amazing videos of people who come home and the hugs of once they're all finally together. And for a lot of people, that looks like the deployment is over. It's all in the past, and now everything is great. And of course, it is great to be back together again. But talk a little bit about post-deployment, because it's not exactly, there is an adjustment that has to take place for the whole family. So share with us, if you please, what that adjustment, that post-deployment adjustment is like.
I always think right after, while we're going through deployment, before the deployment, and before the coming home and the redeployment, we always talk about expectations. Expectation management and communication, I think, is number one. So setting up kind of conversations about how your life is going to look like when they are back, and already being ahead of, what your routine might look like, and what your expectations are for your spouse when they come home. I always think that kind of helps to prepare you, although you'll never be fully prepared and you'll never be able to see all the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. But I would definitely think expectation management and doing as much as you can leading up to that has really helped us.
Yeah,
I can remember. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember when my husband came home from his second deployment, which was a while ago. Our son was just over a year old, and it was really about reestablishing the family dynamic together. Obviously, infants change very quickly, and we were basically transitioning from a single parent household back to a 2-parent, and my husband was coming back almost into this foreign environment. When he left, my son was, still kind of like a blob in the bouncy chair. And when he came back, walking, talking, making huge messes, eating solid food. So it was, very much boots on the ground. We're learning this, and day to day, growing together, getting to know each other again.
Yeah, it definitely depends on so many things, but the kids' ages are a big part of that. And my husband definitely missed, some infant stages, and he missed a birth. And the way that things change during deployment, the amount of change that your household experiences is going to contribute to the amount of stress that you're all going to experience during that reintegration period. So sometimes it has gone smoothly and it's been no big deal. And I've noticed that those reintegrations that go better are the ones where we've had improved communication during deployment. If he has phone calls and emails and we're staying in touch, and he kind of has an awareness of the day-to-day running of the house and what the kids are like and what the challenges are with the children, then he's able to step into that more smoothly. But when he was in his early Iraq and Afghanistan deployments, where it was months with, one phone call a month and a bunch of letters back and forth, there was so many question marks and so many things that we were not on the same page, finances and discipline and future plans and education. And that's a lot to mash together and to discuss in those weeks right after they come home.
Amazing. We could talk about this all day long. Okay, I have one more question for the group. Communication during a deployment. Probably should have asked this question beforehand, but what advice, what can you share with us about what advice do you have with regard to communicating during a deployment? Because both of you are trying to manage a lot of things separately, each in your own worlds, and there's a lot of stress, and those infrequent contacts are really important emotionally. And yes, there is an important family business to cover, but how do you navigate that? How do you structure that so that it's the best communication that it can be?
This might be a enormous topic, but I think that in some ways the challenges that we've seen with communication have shifted over the years. And so, yes, my husband's been in almost 20. And so 19 years ago, when he was first deploying, there was zero communication, and that was a very challenging time. But what spouses are dealing with now, for the most part, a lot of deployment locations, there's internet, there's video chats, there's apps that you can use. And sometimes we see the opposite problem. There's almost too much communication. They have the ability to send, texts and videos and so many things throughout the day that the couple has to find that balance of, just because one person has downtime, that doesn't mean that the other person automatically should be able to drop everything and talk to them. You've got time zone differences to work with. You've got, jobs and regular lives to run. So you do need to have those honest communication about, yeah, we could video chat for 3 hours a day, but maybe we need to set limits. Maybe we need to have meaningful discussions and not just be sitting at the screen, staring at each other. So I see couples running into so many more complex relationship and emotional issues when one wants to talk and the other one can't, or one person is misinterpreting text messages the wrong way. So we're just seeing a whole different level of challenges, I think.
I agree with that. And I think, like you said, you kept saying one person, and I think that that's important because it's not just always the deployed service member or at home. We think about all the sacrifices that service members make being overseas, but there's also, little fires burning all over the place at home, messes and errands, and life doesn't stop. So like you said, 3 hours in the middle of the day is not always feasible. So I think that was an important point that you made.
Yeah. And it's also important when you're talking, depending on the situation that your spouse is in, you don't want to overstress them out about home issues. There's like a delicate balance that you have to find. That's how much do I tell them about the issues that I'm dealing with at home with the kids? Is that just going to affect their work? But at what point do I need the support? It's kind of a really thin line when you have to kind of figure out how much to share with them, but also have them be able to support you when you need it as well. I've found that in deployments for our communication, when we're together every day, we have the same conversations and it's a lot of small talk, but I do find with that distance that deployment brings, you start thinking bigger and having some more deeper conversations that maybe you don't think about having when you're seeing them every day. So I always find it's a bit of a nice surprise that in deployments, you can have some really good conversations that, you probably wouldn't have or wouldn't have thought to have if you were seeing them every day.
Fantastic. I know the three of you could go on about this topic, and I know that you do. You all write for the Blog Brigade, and if someone were to go to Blog Brigade, they would find several posts from each of you that go and provide a lot of great advice on topics like deployment. But let's move on to another topic that is front and center to military life, and that is moving. PCSing, permanent change of station. Just those three letters, It just unlocks all kinds of emotions and thoughts and actions. So let's just start talking about military moves. Who's first?
Okay, so I'll just throw my 2 cents out there. I don't think it ever gets easier. I think that you get to a point where you are just willing to tolerate more broken things and plan changes. So I guess in a way it feels easier the more moves you do, unless you moved this year, which was a complete disaster. But for that, the people going through it the first time, everything is foreign. And I guess as you go on, you get more seasoned, get more experiences under your belt, and the little things don't seem to bother you as much anymore.
Yeah, I think we all PCS this year. All three of us, I think. We PCS in July. Not the easiest year to PCS. And we had to do a Diddy move. And it is really challenging. But one little tip that I'll throw out that I like to do is sometimes you don't have a lot of advance warning that you're going to, be PCSing. But as early as you possibly can, I like to go through each room and organize and purge as much as I can. And then I kind of collect all of that stuff. And this year I actually did a garage sale before we moved, which was actually really helpful because then we used that cash on hand for moving. Moving is expensive, and it's nice to have that little cash with you. And you also are getting rid of a bunch of stuff that you don't maybe need to drag with you at every duty station. I feel like we just keep getting rid of things, faster and faster the longer we're here because we don't want to move with all of our stuff. But the garage sale was a really good thing for me. I'll probably plan to do that from now on.
For sure. I think you get into a mode where just instead of spring cleaning, you're kind of automatically PCS purging every year, whether or not you have orders. And there was at least once where that worked out very well for us. My husband had been deployed, and I figured I might as well, make it a project to clean out closets and get the garage taken care of while he was gone. And he ended up getting somewhat surprise orders shortly after returning from that deployment. So thankfully we were ready to go because I had spent months just kind of cleaning out and getting ready. So it definitely, there's no guaranteed way to make a move go smoothly. And each one has been a little bit different for us overseas and domestic. But I do think that the more research you do and the more questions that you ask, especially the first time around, there is paperwork out there, there's regulations in place, there's protections for families. And the more questions that to ask your moving company or to ask the chain of command, then hopefully the better your move is going to go in the end.
Well, I'm retired Navy, and I can tell you about the coffee table that had the little stickers. And at some point, there was a whole row of stickers underneath, and it was sort of a badge of honor.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we get military moves, and we deal with them. How do you talk to military moves to kids? How do you prepare them for it? What do you do with kids to get them ready for a move?
Yeah. I'll take that one. I love, with our kids, I love the idea of just, open communication as honest as possible, as early as possible to prepare them. So, my oldest is 9. So this PCS that we just did was probably the hardest because she had the longest amount of time there to really form relationships, and she went to school with all these kids. But I found that it's easier to reassure them and have a way for them to communicate with their friends before you leave, have that conversation and ways that you can stay connected. And so they feel like they're not losing their friends, that they can keep up with them. And I like to spin it in a positive way. How cool is it that you're going to have friends all over the world and all over the nation? And I think that's a really unique thing to the military child. And it's pretty awesome that they can have the network with friends all over. And I also think that it's important to find things that excite them in the new place that you're going, research it, and let them know, oh, there's this really cool, bouncy house place or gymnastics place or whatever is going to excite them. So they'll look forward to it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that has made a big difference. We've had some moves that were harder for others on the kids, and it does depend a little bit on their ages and their schools and all that. But the more that we could tangibly show them something about the future base or the town or the house, we'd use Google Maps and look up the neighborhood and show them, look, there's a park across the street. Or if they were in sports and scouts and activities, we'd find the local troops and, teams and contact coaches and say, hey, we're going to be coming in a few months. And then the kid already has the knowledge that I've got a team to join. I've got a group that I'm going to be part of. So that seems to be very reassuring with the more tangible pictures and contacts and things that you can show them that, hey, life doesn't stop when we move. It just goes to a different place.
Yeah, 100%. I honestly feel like a salesman a lot of the time, like, oh, look at this great thing that we're going to do when we get there. But I mean, that's what you have to do. It's just selling them on the idea and, giving them the little nudge to find them the little niche groups to dive into when they get there.
It's interesting. You sort of describe yourself as a salesman. I actually think of you, the three of you, as managers. I almost, you almost want to put military spouse on a resume. But so let's turn a corner and talk about your careers. How do you manage them? And a serious question: what does being a spouse in the military community mean to your skills as someone who can organize, who can be flexible and responsive and innovative and unflappable? How do you take all of those qualities and maintain a career?
I'll start. So when I went to college, I got a degree in English and elementary education. And I did that for exactly 2 years until our first PCS, and I couldn't find a job. So, here I am with this idea of what I was planning to do career-wise my entire life. And in, the first few months of being a military spouse, that was shaken. So I kind of figured out a way to adapt. I used my interest in writing to start a personal blog, which sort of turned into writing for a local newspaper in New Bern. And I mean, for pennies on the dollar, more just for my own enjoyment than anything else. I don't even know if anybody read it, but that's okay. And then that sort of got my foot into this network that, led me to writing for contractors and eventually Military OneSource, which I credit as one of the biggest steps in my career. This career I didn't even know I wanted before the military because it was foreign to me. But writing for Military OneSource has given me knowledge that I can use in my own life. It has given me a network to communicate with, and it's actually shown me that, my favorite audience to write for and work for is military spouses, military families, because I think they are a captive audience, they are a selfless audience, and they're an audience that needs to be supported. So in doing all of that, I got the idea to go back to school, get my master's, and further my career in that lane. And if it weren't for that first move, if it weren't for being a military spouse, I might not have found this passion and this career calling that, I'm on this direction now. So I really think it's about leaning in, taking those opportunities. Maybe it's not a paying job, maybe it's volunteering. Some of the biggest items on my resume that I speak to and feel like I really got a lot of hands-on experience with were volunteer opportunities. So, it be in the season that you're in. And I know overseas, sometimes career opportunities are rare. So you need to find ways to further your skill set in your career lane. And there are things to push you forward, even, if it's not a traditional job. And you will get there and you'll find something that you're passionate about.
Kristi, I love that because our stories are actually very similar. And when I married my husband, I had a better, higher paying job than he did. And I left that to do the first PCS and was promptly unemployed in North Carolina in the middle of nowhere. And while I was there, I figured, I'll work on a master's, invest some time in myself, use it at the next duty station. Next duty station was overseas. So again, the employment was extremely limited. And it took years of, kind of just playing around with hobbies and different interests before I finally decided to purposely use writing as a career, purposely try to be professional and, make some type of income with it, mostly just so I could pay for preschool or kids' activities, And when I created a blog and started approaching it as a professional job, it took a little while for me to admit that I was a writer, that I was a professional. For a while, it was just, I'm a blogger. It's something I do on the side. And it really took, the Military One Source has been great, but several other magazines and companies that people started viewing me as a professional. And so now I have an LLC. I am a business owner and I have to think of myself that way and treat myself that way and run my professional life in that way. Whereas a few years ago, I never imagined that I was going to start a business and be an entrepreneur and all those types of things. So military life can definitely take you in some interesting directions.
Definitely, for sure. I think this is a really important topic in the military spouse community. I think a lot of spouses really have a hard time finding a job, and you don't know who you're going to marry sometimes when you're going to college and what your career path is going to look like. So I think the ability to be adaptable is something that you learn as a military spouse in lots of different areas of your life, but as career-wise, it's really difficult for a lot of spouses. And I just wanted to tag on to what Kristi said about volunteering. I think that's a huge, there's always, opportunities to volunteer in units and FRG leader or SFRG leader. There's all sorts of volunteer opportunities that look great on a resume. And I am excited to see how this this transition from working from home will make maybe more jobs available for people like military spouses. It'll be interesting to see how that changes.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the working from home virtual world has in some ways given military spouses a little edge up for the first time. We were doing virtual before it was cool, before it was even a thing. And now we have a lot of those networking skills, a lot of that flexibility, a lot of the capability to manage different tasks at once. So hopefully it will open up a lot more doors.
That's great. If you would talk a little bit about the Blog Brigade. I'm just thrilled about the opportunity to provide a forum for military spouses to talk to military spouses, that person-to-person sharing of advice, and even sharing the things that don't work out so well. That's what's so beautiful about the Blog Brigade. We want a real perspective from military spouses. So share with us, what you would want to say to other military spouses to encourage them to write for the Blog Brigade.
I would say, first of all, that there is room for everyone in this community, and we need all of the voices and all of the experience. I know that when I first started writing my blog, I felt like I was just kind of speaking in my tiny corner of the internet, and there were these, big famous writers and bloggers that I thought I would never be able to interact with or have anything to do with. And at some military conferences, I met some of these people, and it turns out they are wonderful, normal, everyday people, and they knew who I was. And there were things that I had written that they hadn't experienced that they were able to gain from my experiences. So I think every military spouse experience is different. And the more that you share the challenges that you've faced and things that worked for you and, things that didn't work out so well, someone is going to be able to learn from that. And I think being able to take our own difficulties and turn them into something that's valuable and helpful to someone else is just one of the most rewarding parts of writing for the Blog Brigade.
Yeah, I would say as a military spouse, it's like one of the most diverse group of people, I would think. And everybody kind of deals with things differently. And the Blog Brigade has been a great opportunity to meet other spouses and to see how you know, they overcome obstacles, but also there's so much room for everyone else and all the other unique perspectives out there. As military spouses, we aren't around our family a lot, so the support system means a lot, and sharing what we've learned is really incredible, and it's a great resource for a lot of other spouses. So I would encourage anyone, you know, who likes to write. I find it kind of therapeutic. I think it's great to put my thoughts on paper, and I think it's a great outlet for military spouses.
I like what you said about meeting people this way, because when you read somebody's personal, you know, account in a blog, you do feel like you get to know them a little bit, especially if you read it over time. So you see personality come out, and I think that that's really special. It's not a watered down, you know, here's how military life is, A, B, C. It's, you know, real people going through real challenges, real triumphs, and, you know, even, you know, you both kind of echoed it. You might not feel like you have a story to tell, but I guarantee you, you do. So somebody will find it helpful. Somebody will maybe find it entertaining. I know I mess up all the time and I write about it, so hopefully people laugh. So just share your story. We're all part of the same community, and, you know, it's a great way to connect. And it, you know, as we were talking about careers, it can be a great way to keep something on your resume, keep yourself writing, and keep yourself, you know, engaged.
So we have a link that we can post, and it's a link. It's the sort of the first page that you go to on the Blog Brigade if you're thinking about, well, how do I get something that I write on the Blog Brigade? We'll go ahead and post that for you in the comments section down below. And we thank you for being with us today. So Katelyn, Nixon, Kristi Stollenberg, and Lizann Lightfoot, I appreciate you so much for being with us today. And as I wrap up today, I just encourage for those of you who are watching, if you have any comments, any questions for us, for our guests, go ahead and just post them down below. We absolutely will get back to you. It's a pleasure talking with the three of you today. I wish you all the best, and happy National Veterans and Military Family Month to all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.